We're going to open up the hearing for HB 1465 FN and hear from our prime sponsor, the distinguished, the wonderful, the one and only.
We've worked together a long time, Senator, and I appreciate that. So good morning, Senate Energy Committee. For the record, my name is Keith Ammon. I represent Hillsborough District 42 and the towns of Lineborough, Mount Vernon, and New Boston. Thank you for allowing me to introduce House Bill 1465. 1465, I'll just give you a little background on this bill. This bill came out of some work we did on a commission to study advanced nuclear energy. Advanced nuclear energy is clean and it's also firm. So it's a good potential solution for some of the issues that we face with our energy grid. So we spent a year investigating advanced nuclear. In that commission report, which I brought you all copies, so that you'll have some reading to do if you want to, but there's your complimentary copies. One of the recommendations in there is this bill. And what we found was in existing statute, and I printed out some testimony, I think you have it in front of you. If you look at the third page of that testimony, we found that there are statutes on the books that are not being used that are related to nuclear energy. So it's chapter 162B.
Yep.
So currently in statute, there's a requirement to do regular studies on atomic energy, it's called, but it's nuclear energy. And if you look at later on in the page 162B4, there's supposed to be a coordinator of atomic development activities. And this position hasn't been filled since the mid-aughts. So 2007, I think, was the last time this position was filled. So we used this existing statute as a starting point. And we're revising the statute, revising this position and putting it under the new Department of Energy that didn't exist when that statute was created. So it's reviving the role, it's modernizing it. We're going to name it Coordinator of Nuclear Development and Regulatory Activities, potentially. I think there's some tweaks to the bill that may happen. But we're going to place it under the Department of Energy, and doing so, we're going to make sure that they have the necessary resources and support to coordinate across different departments to make sure that we focus on nuclear, and particularly advanced nuclear, which is the subject of our commission. One of the recommendations we got from experts in the commission was we should put the definition of advanced nuclear in our statutes and tie it to the federal definition. And so the last page of that little packet has the federal definition that we reference in the bill. So it talks about advanced nuclear reactors, their inherent safety, the low waste, improved fuel material performance, and so on. All right, and Senator Pearl was also a member of the commission, and we spent a lot of time together working on that. Good morning. So I won't, you can read my testimony, I won't read it word for word, but I asked for your consideration and your favorable consideration on passing House Bill 1465. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Questions from the committee? Senator Waters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Representative. You know, I was a co-sponsor of the bill, and I'm really appreciate the work the commission, you know, that you did in your study, and it's good study and good bill. As I mentioned to you earlier, would it be possible and make sense to you, given the status of offshore wind auctions coming up and the hiring that's going on in that office right now, if we were to be able to find a way to leave the offshore wind office with its own title and functions, but find a way to make sure that the position that you want, that coordinator, would be located in the Department of Energy, but maybe without redoing the offshore wind office. Does that make some sense?
Yeah, so the House Energy Committee had the idea to rename the Office of Offshore Wind to be the Office of Energy Innovation, sort of broadening it up. So that wasn't part of the original bill. That was you know, their suggestion. I think the Department of Energy is going to come behind me and have a suggestion to call it the Office of Offshore Wind and Energy Innovation, so kind of everybody gets what they want. But that'll be up to the committee to decide on that tweak, so.
Well,
And
thank you.
I'm not opposed.
You know, we'll be in touch, and I'm because of where we are with the offshore right now. I wanted to make sure that we weren't kind of making it impossible for that to function the way it needs to right away. But we'll figure out something, and I'll be in touch. So
Okay. You don't want to make any waves with the offshore wind.
You want the wind behind your back. All right. Any further questions? You must have something to say. Come on.
he's good.
All right. Seeing no further questions, thank you, Representative.
Thank you very much.
Josh Elliott from the Department of Energy.
Sorry, I'm trying to find the bill here. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, Josh Elliott. I'm the Director of the Division of Policy and Programs with New Hampshire Department of Energy. As indicated on the sign-up sheet, we're in favor of this bill as amended by the House with the one slight tweak that Representative Ammon had mentioned regarding the name of the office. The study commission that Representative Ammon referenced, I know you have a copy of the report there, did highlight a lot of all of these changes as he referenced. I would certainly encourage you to read the report. I know sort of talking about advanced nuclear sort of may have some people's eyes glaze over. The report itself is actually, it's very well written. Representative Ammon's humble. It's very well written and is very accessible to those who are not experts on this topic. So I found it very readable. Our legal counsel, who was the Senate appointee, the Department of Energy appointee on the commission, was evangelizing the report across the office, saying, "Oh, you've got to read this. You got to read this." So it's a good read. I encourage you to read it. Regarding the bill itself, we don't have any suggestions about technical changes, with the exception of two. I know, as Senator Waters has referenced in his question to Representative Ammon about the name of the title of the office, the department is open to other suggestions. I had floated the suggestion, again, no pun intended, of using just keeping the existing title and then adding comma and energy innovation at the end as a possible solution. It is not. That is not a hill I'm going to die on. I am completely open to other things. As I talked to Senator Waters last week, my skill set is not in coming up with clever titles and names for things, so we're open to other suggestions for that.
If you need a pun, we have a senator that's very good with those.
I don't want to go against the
It's good to see that Griffin Roberge's tradition has lived on. Regarding the effective date, we would suggest, if the committee wished to, you could move up the effective date to June 30th of 2024. There are other mechanisms in existing statute of where we could get the funding and then establish the position. Again, getting legislative approval for those at each step of the way, so it wouldn't be sort of an end run around a budget process, if you will.
The effective date is when?
I'm sorry, as amended by the House, the effective date is June 30th of 2025. We would suggest, if you'd like us to get started sooner on this, you could make the effective date of June 30th, 2024.
Well, it might not be signed by then.
There's also that is also true as well. So we'd have to, you could do
Or upon
upon passage or 30 days after passage or whatever. On passage would be just as fine
On
too.
passage. Phil, you got that? On passage. Any further comments, discussions, questions? Senator Waters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Josh. And so, we've had to have a little conversation. I hear your suggestion for the title of the office, but what I'm trying to get at is that I want to be sure that the director that you're in the process of hiring now, that their portfolio is an offshore wind. And so, would it be possible to look at a way in which to have another line here under that office that says that what would you want to call it, a staff, another person whose would be, and you could call it, nuclear, whatever, and other innovative energies. But I think that you know, does that seem to make sense as kind of what we might try to do?
Yeah, there's a couple of options we have in terms of where to place this position, in terms of titles and how we address it. I would like to just check with our business office, they are the experts in terms of org charts and things like that, to make sure that things sort of land where they're supposed to land, and that having a suggested word change here might actually have a tremendous ramification in terms of how DAS does org charts. So just to be mindful of unintended consequences, but I think there's a way we can all get to yes here.
And just to follow up on that, I mean, I think that just to reaffirm in public here is that, given the fact that we're likely to see the auctions and the industry is going to be here big time checking us out and wanting to work on these things, and once the auctions are held, it's off to the races, that this person needs to be ready and doing that. And so I think that what will be important then is that when we have this other position, we have a sufficient definition that we know this is separate funding, and that we've got some duties there that I think, you know, maybe Representative Ammons would want to make sure that we describe it in such a way that really gets done what he wants to get done in the bill. So anyways, I think that, you know, it might not be bad to be able to exec this next Tuesday, I would guess. So if you could have some language pretty soon.
What's our deadline for FNs?
No, 6. May 6.
This is an FN. It's an FN,
May
so.
6 is the FNs.
This is an FN.
So when would we have to act on it, Phil? If it's an FN? It is an FN. So we'd be good next Tuesday, we could. Okay, all right, so anyway, so we'll talk.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Thank you, thanks a lot.
Further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr.
And we're going
Chairman.
to close the hearing and open up the hearing on HB 1139.
Pardon? Oh, yeah, yeah, longer. Yeah. Understood.
Do I have a prime sponsor? You have the floor, Representative.
Thank you, Chairman Bard and esteemed senators before me. I'm here to introduce House Bill 1139 relative location of the conventional septic systems relative to the seasonal high water table. For the record, my name is Mark McConkey. I represent the good people of Carroll District 8. I first came to the House in 2002, and presently I'm Chair of Public Works and Highways. I have several bills before you, so to save time, I would like to offer a little bit of my background so we don't repeat. And to establish the fact that I'm not a placeholder legislator for the department, I have a background. So if it's okay with you, sir.
Yep.
My profession for 30 years has consisted of being a New Hampshire permitted septic designer, installer, and licensed septic evaluator, as well as a small system operator. Additionally, I am licensed site evaluator in Maine, as well as being a certified septic inspector in the state. In Massachusetts, I'm a Title V inspector. I own and operate a family-owned excavation business with my daughter and my 2 sons. Both of my sons are New Hampshire septic designers, installers, and septic evaluators as well. My entire family is in the wastewater business. And as you can well imagine, when the subject of conversation, typically around my kitchen table, until my wife Carol tells us to change the subject. There are few in my profession that are both active designers and installers. And that provides us with a unique understanding of septic system construction and operation that is lost on those that are only designers or installers. We have hundreds of septic designs, hundreds of septic installs to date in the ground. And just a couple of years ago, my son Dale and I designed more than 20% of all the permitted designs in all of Carroll County. Back to the subject. In 1967, when our subsurface system law was enacted, the standard for septic system construction was a concrete septic tank tied to a stone and pipe leach field. The stone and pipe leach field is tried and true and works well due to its large footprint. To date, the department's design standard was to place the bottom of the stone 48 inches above the seasonal high water table. But interesting enough, for decades when a system fails, the department permits the septic system to be replaced at 24 inches without waivers. The department will testify that time has proven that a stone and pipe system installed 24 inches above seasonal high water offers treatment and does not endanger our life-sustaining groundwater. I suggest the fact that the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, our New England neighbors in Maine, Vermont, Connecticut, permit new stone and pipe septic systems to be constructed at 24 inches above seasonal high water supports our department's position. Our profession and the industry has evolved over years. The waste industry has brought forward systems that are same or have the same or better level of treatment as stone and pipe while maintaining an acceptable level of treatment. As a designer, we ultimately choose a system that meets the landowner's septic needs and costs the least amount of money to construct and maintain. Presently, an in-ground 3-bedroom septic system with the required septic design costs on an average of $27,000. And if the system requires a pump chamber, alarm, an electrician, and a mound, that will escalate the install price to be more than $31,000. If this bill is enacted, and we are permitted to design new stone and pipe systems at 24 inches on a lot with the right topography, we will save homeowners thousands of dollars. To be clear, stone and pipe will not eliminate any of the permitted plastic systems, which are the alternative, as there are many house lots that will not accommodate this larger conventional system. As a member of the Speaker's Special Commission on Housing, we asked residents and developers, what is hindering housing development? Repeatedly, we were told a lack of municipal water and sewer, towns requiring extraordinarily large lot size that restrict growth, and burdensome government regulation which slows down the process, limits opportunity, and increases cost. The special committee brought forward many recommendations to cut government red tape, and this bill was identified as a worthwhile proposal to save development costs under certain conditions. Mr. Chairman, following my testimony, a more credentialed person might claim that their plastic system, unlike an advanced stone and pipe system, has been lab tested and their results support a 24-inch seasonal high water elevation offset. While that claim is true, stone and pipe is not a proprietary system. It is time tested, offers equal protection, and is much less expensive to install. Mr. Chairman, I ask that you support the House position, respect the opinion of our subsurface department and the Environmental Protection Agency. And finally, I ask that you side with New Hampshire residents and permit them the opportunity to enjoy development savings and pass this out of your committee with a recommendation ought to pass. Senators, I thank you for your attention.
Well, thank you for your testimony and for commenting on the bill. Other questions from the committee? It was my understanding that it wasn't savings of thousands, but it's only hundreds of dollars. I'm talking with somebody who's been in the business for about 30 years as well, designing them around the New England area. My concern with this particular legislation is, we're all worried about the groundwater. We're having PFAS issues, we've got a lot of landfill bills coming up, and a lot of people are really worried about contaminating aquifers and whatnot, and raising it up another to about 24 inches could potentially jeopardize the proper leaching, I guess, or something to that effect. So that's one of my concerns.
Okay, would you like me to answer that first?
I would like you to answer that.
Thank you. Hundreds of dollars is not what I see in practice in my area. If the topography's good and we can eliminate a pump, a tank, and all of that, that's thousands of dollars. Plastic systems, Eliminator, Enviro, and all of these properties cost much more in material, thousands of dollars more in material, not hundreds of dollars. And I remember the day that I used to install a septic system for $9,000. And now, because of pricing of materials and everything else, I'm at that number that we're speaking of. And I'm at most a mid-range installer. There's people much higher than me in my area. So every time that we can keep things gravity, it will save thousands of dollars. The question on the groundwater. There is no one more concerned than the groundwater than myself. That is my business, keeping the aquifer protected. When I came into this business 30 years ago, I would have people from the state and installers say that if we were to put a brand new septic system in and we were to pour sewage into it, I could put a cup underneath the bed 2 feet under and that would be clean to drink. I've never seen anybody demonstrate that in front of me.
But now we're trying to push this forward to do the very same thing.
We are already doing this exact same thing for septic systems that fail in our state. 2 foot, so much of this depends on a well-maintained system. You pump your septic system, you don't overflow it, and the stone has large voids, which allows oxygen. And then we're also adding 6 inches of sand underneath that again, which is the same thing the plastic people do. They put 6 inches under there. And that aids greatly in taking out phosphates, nitrates, and other things. PFAS, landfills, all of those other things have contaminants that far exceed anything we're talking about. I'm sure that the department will testify the same as I have, and we're stewards of the environment. I would not propose a thing here that would jeopardize whether it be my home, my precious lake that I live outside, or anywhere else.
Questions from the committee? Senator Person.
Thank you, and thank you for taking my question. So you had just said that we're already doing this for failed septic systems. So why would we make a consistent or if we're using them on failed systems at 2 feet, why would we continue using the, I understand, I guess I'm trying to get the question right. If we're making this 2 feet a consistent project or a process, where right now we're only using it for discretionary to keep failed systems, how can I feel comfortable that this is just being used for failed systems, but yet we're going to use it going forward on a permanent basis?
Thank you. So in the 80s, when the department was developed, the standard was 4 feet. life has marched on beyond that point. Technology has moved forward. The 24-inch threshold as opposed to 48-inch threshold is accepted by the Department of Environmental Services, and I listed just a few of the states that are around us as common practice. The science is there to do that. The department has thousands, I'm sure thousands of approvals that bear that out. The advantage, or when we were looking at housing, the advantage of where we could make development less and be safe. We looked at sprinkler systems, we looked at everything. This is easily a place that can provide that relief without sacrificing anything to the environment. You can feel good about it tonight when you go to bed, I can assure you.
So I'm still on the, my worry is there's this push for housing crisis. There's this push to build, build, build. And in the process of that, there's motivation to get something like this passed to lower the requirement. This is how I'm processing this. To lower the requirements and to change it so that more developers can develop, which I'm all for developing, but I don't want to throw caution to the wind and then say, well, the science. Well, people pay for science and scientists can be bought. Just saying. And not showing any aspersions on you, but one of the things I'm really concerned about, because I hear it in this committee, is water safety. And I hear what you're saying, but I need something a little bit more concrete than what you're telling me, because we do have situations with PFAS, and we know that it's here, and we have a very wet state, if you will. We have lots of aquifers and we have lots of lakes, and I am concerned that the push for this housing crisis that we have is making us rush. You follow where I'm getting?
I'm with you.
And I don't want industry to be out here saying, "Hey, look, we need this," or some organization saying, "We need this. This is the science. Show me."
Thank you.
I don't have anything in my folder that says this is great stuff. I've got one piece of paper. I need to know that this is definitely safe, and that there are improvements in that reducing that 4 feet to 24 inches is actually going to be just as effective. Because now if the 4 feet failed, the 2 feet can fail as well. Now you got nowhere to go. What, 16? Good. I don't know. What do we do when the 2 feet fails? And if you bring it up, you have less area for that to drain. Or you may need more area for that to drain. I'm just trying to process this in my head, and I have no science here to show me, other than your good looks and your...
I sincerely appreciate that comment. I will assure you that the department will testify after me, so some of those assurances will be brought forward. Housing was the cravat to bring this forward. It's not the driving factor to bring this forward. The Department of Environmental Services subsurface has been looking at rewriting rules for a number of years. And one of the items that would have come out of there, which I've been told, would have been this reduction for stone and pipe to be lowered to 24-inch without waivers. We have sat in committees for years and waited for rules to be written, and there are times that legislation needs to be brought forward, and you're going to find that they're in support. You're going to find that they were going to propose this anyways in rules. What has been holding back is an industry which has put forward a bunch of information out there claiming that this is more housing than it is for the environment. PFAS is an airborne, appears to be that it came airborne, traveled great distances, settled in. There's also materials that have leached into the ground that have made their way into the aquifer. I live on the second largest aquifer, overburdened sand aquifer in New Hampshire. I am surrounded by lakes, Winnipesaukee, Ossipee, and so many others. The biggest danger to our environment and to the quality of those lakes are septic systems that were put in the ground, were never approved by the state, and have never been maintained. The number of systems that I find that are nothing more than a 55-gallon tank going into a leaching pit would astound you. And there is other legislation that will change our process from assessment when property is sold to actual inspection. The danger to our water table is that system that's never been constructed, never maintained, and never pumped. This 24-inch standard here is what is done regionally around us by other states. The Department of Environmental Protection Agency would not agrees with this position. I would move to others to speak to that. I can assure you, this is my lifeblood. This is my family's lifeblood. I'm a respected individual in my area. We install, we design. I would not bring a ruse to you today.
And I thank you for your testimony. Senator Waters for the question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm not the expert on this. I will just know, I have a little bit of concern about the groundwater and the water level because we're seeing that come higher in the Seacoast area because of the sea level rise is pushing the groundwater up into into road beds, into the bottom of landfills, and certainly the potential is there that it's going to be pushing up into septic as well. So it just makes me a little nervous about that, which is local to my region, not to yours. My question about it is that, in what you add here on line 12 on page 2, you got the shall. And I just wondered whether there's any circumstances where that could be a may. If we had a may there and then there was some language that said, under what criteria that if DES really thinks, well, the 2 feet is really pretty good, but right here, maybe not. So with the shall, there's no choice in that. So I just wondered if you had thought through that about whether that could be a may.
Thank you, Senator. I'm always appreciative of your follow through on these things. I would leave that to the department to see if I'm amicable to what you're suggesting. To the beginning of your question and talking about the seacoast and having issues with rising tables and so forth, I have neglected to tell you that the reason that Stone and Pipe is so effective and why I'm not pulling this for every other system out there is the footprint, imagine my desk, is extremely large. The size of that field is much larger than any other state that has that program. The innovative technology that has come out started out as an Enviro product bought by Infiltrator and so forth, took this very large footprint and reduced it down to a narrow field with pipe as close as 6 inches apart. It's not a secret, and I designed these items, they found a high failure rate in that product in a short amount of time. What they came back with were changes in their design, and they widened their system and added oxygen to make it process better. When this original company, which was extremely innovative and allowed us to build on a smaller footprint, when they were purchased by ADS Plastic, the largest manufacturer of plastic in our country, they abandoned the science that said it was okay to build like this, and they doubled the amount of pipe that was necessary and increased their fields to twice as big, hoping to mitigate any future problems. They are always comparing themselves to this large tabletop stone and pipe. This is the standard. It doesn't work all the time, but it is tried and true. And I would hope that that addresses, and if it were a larger septic system, something in excess of 2,500 gallons a day, a matter of tying several homes together, the flow would be split, the fields would be offset, and a mounding analysis would have to be done before it was approved by the department. And the mounding analysis refers to, in layman's terms, exactly what you're talking about. I've brought in all this new water. It's sitting on top of the groundwater, and it's causing the upward movement of the water table or mounding, which takes further consideration. I hope I brought that down to a level that.
Yes, I understand. Thank you.
Okay. I'm available
Simple enough
anytime.
that even a senator can understand it, right?
I would not say that in these hallowed halls. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you very much. Chris, let's see, do I have any representatives here? No. All right, Chris Albert? Albert.
I'm waiting if you want to let the department go.
No, I'd like you up.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, great.
You're first.
Read verbatim for it.
I have to go before Phil Trowbridge comes.
Yep, there you go. Thank you. For the record, my name is Christopher Albert. I'm chairman of the Granite State On-Site Wastewater Association. Again, we've been here before. We're a nonprofit organization of the septic designers, pumpers, installers. It used to be GSDI, but again, we brought the pumpers and the haulers in and the evaluators. I won't read the whole statement. Mark kind of brought a lot of it. I've been doing this. I'm a licensed septic designer, wetland scientist, evaluator. Been doing this for almost 40 years now. UNH graduate, soils. Really look back, about this whole soils water table thing. When I look back at what we were doing in the 80s, we really didn't have a good handle on what a water table was. In the last 40 years, we've come down to terminologies like redoxomorphic features. We've got a better handling on where the water table is in relation. So when I look back, I've gone back and replaced failed systems from the 70s and 80s. No way close to the water table. They were way off. And I think a lot of the science of the 48-inch separation was due to the fact of lack of knowledge of that water table. So again, the soil science has come a long way to understand that aspect of what we actually need for separation. We had our conference for GSOIL last week, and we had Professor John Buchanan from the University of Tennessee speak. He's a PhD and a PE. And I sat down and talked to what's in Tennessee and all that for water tables. They have a 24-inch water table also in Tennessee. And really, when you look at what's happening in a leach field, 90% of the reduction is in that bottom of the bed, that biomat layer. That's where the BOD, TSS, that's the heart of what's getting reduced in that aerobic environment. The 2-foot separation is kind of extra, and that's to reduce pathogens. The soil, the bugs that are in there are eating those pathogens all the way through. So really that 24 inches really what we need to get there. And as Mr. Representative McConkey stated, the failed systems, the other proprietary material out there, they're all 24 inches. This is kind of the last item to get cleared up on that. And it is a substantial cost savings. We would prefer a stone and pipe is tried and true. We would prefer on 100% of our installs to do stone and pipe. But due to the water tables, topography, it becomes very restrictive from that aspect. That's what I really wanted to talk about. Really is the science. There's science on the soils perspective that's really backing up this change. I'm open for questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Phil, would you mind coming from the department? Phil and Rainey. It's a duo, the dynamic duo. Is Rainey here? Yeah. You want to come up to Rainey?
I just didn't want to sit in Bill's lap.
No, that's all right. We're gonna have Batman and Robin up here. Come on, let's go.
Thanks.
We appreciate you both being here.
Yes, yeah. Good morning. Thank you. So for the record, my name is Philip Trowbridge. I'm the manager of the Land Resources Management Program at DES, which includes the Subsurface Systems Bureau.
And you're?
Rainey Pelletier, I'm the Water Division Director at DES.
Thank you very much. You heard some of our questions already. There is a concern about, I still have concerns, and I'm told to trust the science, so.
Yes, absolutely. So I think, given that you've had a long introduction to the bill already, I think our testimony will focus on your questions. The first one I'd like to talk about is the question of testing and whether there's treatment for it with the 24 inches of separation. And what the department is basing our opinion on is EPA guidance, which allows for separation of anywhere between 2 feet and 4 feet. And at 2 feet, it cites a number of scientific studies showing that there's adequate treatment. There's really three parameters that you'd be concerned about with wastewater in an on-site system. There's bacteria and viruses, there's phosphorus, and there's nitrogen. And so for bacteria and viruses with a 2-foot separation, the studies show that you get a non-detect for the bacteria. You get basically what they call a 3-log reduction, which is 1,000 times reduced amount, through as the water trickles through 24 inches. So beyond that, there really isn't any to be detected, so it's safe after that. For phosphorus, sand is really what does the heavy lifting for removal of phosphorus. Phosphorus absorbs to sand, so when you have a sand layer below a stone and pipe system, or even just natural soil, you're removing all of it, basically. So that's one of what we'll be concerned about for our systems near freshwater bodies, because phosphorus is the limiting nutrient in freshwater systems. Nitrogen is another nutrient. It's more of a concern in the seacoast, in Senator Waters area. Septic systems, conventional systems do not remove that, nor do conventional wastewater treatment plants, for that matter. It requires an actual active process that goes through denitrification. So those things will be required in areas where there's a nitrogen problem, say, for instance, around Great Bay, but it's not a widespread issue for the whole state. So, the department has been considering this change for a while because we are quite different than some of our neighboring states. We did a review of all of the New England states, and with the exception of Massachusetts, all of them allow 24 inches of separation. And one of the differences with Mass is that it requires a much smaller leach field. So they're having a higher separation, but a smaller leach field. So if you can imagine, there's you have to look at the combination of the separation vertically and the area of the treatment. You got a big wide system like a stone and pipe system, you don't need as much vertical separation because you've got a very large volume doing the treatment. Whereas if you got a smaller leach field area, you might want to require longer, bigger vertical separation. Just for put some numbers on this, New Hampshire's size that we require for a 3-bedroom leach field is 50% larger than all the other states except Massachusetts. You know, we're kind of an outlier that way. And so what would be talking about in this case is keeping that same very large size for the leach field area and reducing the separation. So we're maintaining what I would consider a margin of safety.
I know Senator Waters, you had a question?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I have to dash over capital budget in a minute, so I'd like to get a couple of questions out. You know, we do have House Bill 1113, which we haven't heard yet, but, you know, and that seems to reflect concerns about our waters.
Yeah.
And then this bill, the message is that this seems to be okay and safe. And so, you know, so I'm just, you know, curious about a little bit of differentiation there. But I think the basic question, I got a couple questions, and let me get them out because I do have to dash. It's my understanding that you can already approve a 2-foot.
Yes.
And so I'm not sure why we need the bill. And that kind of leads to my question I had for Chairman McConkey, that, you know, I do worry about a little wiggle room for you all. So I wondered if it would, you know, given the fact you can always do the 2 feet under certain circumstances, if this bill was reworded to say may, or if it were shall, in less particular circumstances of a proposal would not be feasible for a 24-inch standard. So I wanted to throw that out there. And then if I just can ask my second question, do you have some third-party testing on that the 2 feet is as good as the 4 feet? So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to get that out, and I'm going to dash in a couple of minutes, but I've got my questions out. Thank you.
Okay, great. I'm going to try and handle them in turn. The issue about House Bill 1113, those are really kind of separate issues. And what we're talking about here today is treatment standards for a functioning system. House Bill 1113 would be, the goal there is to identify failed systems that are near water bodies. And that's by far our biggest concern in terms of water quality.
Understood. Yeah.
Right. So obviously the department supports 1113. And, you know, our support for this, I don't think is inconsistent because with a functioning system, if it's treating all the way with, you know, 2 feet, then the extra 2 feet is really just extra cost to someone without environmental benefit. Second question, third-party testing. Third-party testing is in the EPA guidance. They list about 5 different third parties that have done the testing showing 2 feet separation is adequate for on-site treatment. So that's what we're basing this on. We can get you those studies, but they've all been vetted and used in EPA as they come up with the federal guidance on this issue.
So my last one, if I may, Mr. Chairman, related to that was that, you know, do you need an exit ramp? I mean, you can already, apparently you can already do the 2 feet in certain circumstances. So, but this bill would say shall, you know, that's it. And so I, you know, you're the experts on this, but I wondered about, you know, shall unless particular circumstances of a proposal would not be feasible for 24-inch standard, or just have it as may. And I, you know, as I said, you're the experts, but you know, I worry about being locked in. That's all.
Yeah, and that's a valid concern. One of the things that in the language is that the separation should be maximized to the extent practicable. So we would, you know, we are looking for a case of if you don't need, we don't want every system installed at 24 inches if it's not necessary. If, you know, you only need 3 feet or slightly less than 4 feet, you know, then that we want to maintain that separation to the extent practical.
If I may, it does say in the bill, shall do 24 inches.
Yeah,
so long as you have the 6 inches of sand. So
yeah.
It does.
And I think it's a good point on your part, and I think the department would be supportive of some flexibility in the statute. We'll be incorporating this requirement into our rule, you know, and you know, having some flexibility as to how we prepare the rule would be helpful.
Senator Thank you. I'll be back.
Thank you. So what happens when a town like Hampstead, who in the past has had a water shortage, and we've had homes that have actually gone months without water and had to be shipped in, how would this affect them?
Can I?
Oh, yes.
Thank you for the question, Senator. I think we're looking at two different concepts here, I think. When you're talking about Hampstead, we know that there's been a water availability project. Let me be very clear that over the years that on-site wastewater is tried and true. And when you get into a situation like you're talking about in Hampstead and the whole southern tier, as you well know, in the large project we're looking, it's not something because of an issue of wastewater generated residentially. A lot of it is the PFAS issue, as we all well know. And let me be very clear that septic systems on site don't treat for PFAS. They don't have anything to do with PFAS. They're going to discharge water to the ground. I don't care if it's an innovative technology or it's a stone and pipe field. They have nothing to do with renovation of wastewater that has PFAS in it. So that is something, whether it be an innovative or it be stone and pipe. And I would say, to follow up on your question, is that when you're looking at the Hampstead areas, the dairies, the London dairies, that whole part of the state, it's more of a source water capability and the ability to move water from one area to another, but it really has nothing even remotely associated to on-site wastewater.
Senator Pearl?
Morning. Thanks for coming in, taking my question. So you talked a bit about phosphorus. One of the things that we deal with a lot in agriculture, applying animal waste, is phosphorus and the ability for it to be tied up in the soil and its movement with water, especially. Do you have some data that will kind of support that 6 inches of sand is going to lock this phosphorus up long enough for it to not have, be impacted by water movement coming out of the lessened amount of distance, from your high water table? Because you're going from 4 feet to 2 feet, which is going to make that water move that much quicker to the water table. And are you confident that that 6 inches of sand underneath is going to lock that phosphorus in?
Thank you for your question. I think the short answer is we are confident in that because the removal is happens in the first 6 inches here. It's a very fast process, especially with sand, and that's one of the things that has made us support this bill is the requirement of the sand layer. Because right now with the in-ground stone and pipe systems, there's not a requirement for that. There's 4 feet of separation, but it's below the bed. It just can be native soil, and the department has felt for a long time that sand really does the heavy lifting with phosphorus removal and treatment, and it's a technology that goes back thousands of years, really. The trickle, trickle filters. So by adding that as a requirement, which is something that wasn't in statute before, in fact, none of this was in statute; it was all in rule. We feel that this is going to be adequate for phosphorus removal.
You follow up?
Yeah. I guess I'm just curious if 6 inches is going to do that and how long it's going to last. I mean, the way we remove phosphorus in the ag world is we grow things and it's plants uptake it. You're not going to have that benefit of removing that phosphorus. I mean, is it essentially going to be a matter of time before it fails because of that?
In our opinion, no. There's a lot of capacity for these systems, and the systems do need to be, a system has a certain lifespan, and when it is rebuilt, that soil and that sand layer is refreshed, so to speak. Right. And so there's a natural process for that to be, to have the capacity to handle the wastewater for the lifetime of the system.
Okay. Thanks.
So, last year was a very wet year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I know for a fact.
So,
And the water tables were very, very high, and I've actually watched it coming up from the sewers and flooding shopping malls. So that being the case, would that have any kind of an effect on something that's either 2 feet or 24 inches as far as removing of the how's that going to work in a really wet season? Say we have another one and we have a multiple number of homes now with the 24 inches versus the 4 feet. Wouldn't it be safer if they were 4 feet down instead of 24 inches?
Good question. As a matter of fact, this year is actually wetter than last year when I look at the problems we're having getting water out of lakes. But to answer your question, I think if that would be the case, then I think if we go with your thought process, I would say that we'd have to look at all technologies relative to bed bottom height. So what I don't want us to do is try and separate this technology from all of the other technologies that are current in use. Many of those, like Phil had said, have 2-foot separation. The key that we know, and as you well know, I was around since '73 when the septic system approval process just took off. And I think Chris spoke to the fact that the renovation of wastewater is always based on soil in 2 feet of unsaturated zone. That's why we talk about this 2 feet of seasonal high water. If you were to go out on a lot today, and if you were qualified, which has come a long way with people that are licensed designers, to evaluate with a seasonal high water table, that you have that 2 feet of unsaturated, that takes care of the business. If in fact you get a high period of flows like we have now, that's going to be effective. Generally, the hydraulics take place depending on the slope, where's it go, how does it sit. And in situations like there's many places all over the state where you walk now and you better have boots. Yeah. Because it's that wet. Those situations generally will have a very high seasonal high water table to begin with. So when the initial design is approved, that probably is subtly been taken care of because the seasonal high water table, if it's wet now, let's say if you go out yesterday, if someone reading that test pit and designed a septic system, that seasonal high water table would be much higher. So when that's evaluated, the design comes in, you look at the 2-foot separation, and it's going to take care of that issue in most cases. So even in the highly wet areas and seasons, not every lot you get your feet wet. You know, depending on the site, depending on it is. And my contention would be, if you're on a site today that you get your feet wet, that had a high seasonal water table to begin with, even though we're seeing 100-year rain events, a little different. So that's not a concern. And I will say that, and Chris Albert touched on this briefly, but I think the reason we started out in my younger days for on-site wastewater with 4 feet, because it was something new. It started in '67. In '71, it was all properties that were, it was '67 was within 1,000 feet of surface water. '71, it was everything. '73 is when I started. And the reason it came out back in '67 with 4 foot is because there was little known about seasonal high water table, how that reacted, how it was treated. So hence the 4 feet came out. And keep in mind, until we started approving innovative technologies, using sand under these technologies, give them a reduction in area, it was all based on the effectiveness of sand treating wastewater. Sand takes care of the nutrients like Senator Pearl had talked about. We've seen that tried and true. We have treated drinking water with sand forever. We now have even some older municipal systems, Sandwich comes to mind, that have leach fields. And their treatment is based on sand. They have to do some samplings for a groundwater discharge permit. And we're not seeing issues because sand is carrying the heavy lift. So that issue, and again, Senator Waters' question about PFAS, let me be very clear. Septic systems have nothing to do with treating PFAS.
Yeah, I'm pretty clear on that one anyway. Having a back door, kind of like what Senator Waters was talking about, is removing the shall to a may. Is there any harm in that?
No, I don't believe so. I mean, I think what we're trying to do is provide flexibility for homeowners in cases where it makes sense. You know, and right now, someone may have the space for a stone and pipe system and wants a stone and pipe system, but the cost to truck in all of the material to build up a mound, if that's what they have to do, you know, is just one of the, you know, several things that is a barrier to housing.
How might that reflect in the rules?
It would probably, the rules would be similar to how they are now, with an exception allowed in certain circumstances for the separation to be less than 4 feet.
Yeah, I think one of the concerns with the committee is just throwing caution to the wind and just allowing, you know what I'm saying? Because you know, it's a very important topic as far as our groundwater, and of course, Senator Waters has a really important question. I mean, Pearl.
Say, he's not here.
Oh, you both have the same color hair.
He doesn't have any hair.
On your face.
Well, my final question. What do you think the impact of making this change from 4 foot to 2 foot would do on the housing market and the inventory that would be available? Do you feel that's going to open up a lot more lots to have the ability to develop?
I'm not sure that this is going to make a big change, that you're going to have another 100 houses built because we now allow on-site for stone and pipe leach fields. What it does do, though, is whether it be a development or whether it be an individual homeowner, it gives them the option of picking a choice that we believe is environmentally sound, that they want to choose. A lot of people don't feel comfortable with new technologies. Stone and pipe has been built, as you've heard, since '67 on. Most of them, many of them last for years and years and years. And I think one of the keys to septic systems, whether it be the new technologies or on-site, is take care of your septic tank. You know, there's so many people that don't pump their tanks, you get solids that go out, systems fail. On our lakes, and why we're seeing some nutrient loads, to speak to your issue of phosphorus, a lot of those beds are in groundwater. You know, they function great in August because the seasonal high water table has gone away. But in the spring and in the early loads, we see nutrients getting into the surface waters, and that's why we're seeing a lot of cyanobacteria, as you're well aware, because we have nutrient issues. The state would be well served, candidly, and this is blasphemous, but it would be prudent if the state over time looked at all septic systems to see if they were out of the groundwater. They're the culprits, not this technology of stone and pipe or the innovative technologies. They're not the culprits. It's the systems that people have overloaded because they now use the places year-round, and those are the big differences. So, again, to closure on the phosphorus issue, historically, because of our sampling of municipal systems that use sand as a treatment, and also history, in my career, which is a long one, I can honestly tell you that I have not seen a deep well, bedrock well or whatever, contaminated by the septic system. You know, whatever the technologies have been, we see it in shallow wells because if there's a system that's in the seasonal high water table area, if you will, hydraulically, depending on what the slope is, you're going to get it in your well. And that's why 75 feet came about many years ago. But today, over, again, my 50 years, I have not seen a direct correlation where a well, other than a shallow well, has been contaminated by any technology of wastewater disposal.
And as a public service announcement, because people are watching, I was told not to use fabric softener because it destroys the leaching of the stone. Is that true?
Could you repeat that?
Using fabric softener, if you have a septic system, actually destroys its effectiveness. If somebody in the audience could tell me if that's absolutely true, because I'm sick of using, what do you call them? Sheets.
Mark?
It's not true?
No, I think that's a good question, though.
Correct.
So I think to answer your question, a lot of what's captured that goes into a leach field, as you well know, leach fields are designed with a septic tank ahead of them. The septic tank is designed for settling out that kind of issues as well as solids. So most of that gets settled out when the tank's pumped. So my final answer would be no, I don't think that softeners a real problem.
We thank you for that, and thank you for watching the show, ladies and gentlemen. And now back to our continued program.
So you continue to smell good now using softeners.
Extra cologne. Yeah. Any further questions? Seeing none. Thank you very much for your testimony. I don't know. And for our next guest, Brian Gilbert, Gilbert Block Company. Hopefully that's not your car, Brian.
No, I park so far away, I hope I can. My sister and I own Gilbert Block Company in Laconia and a couple other town, Hooksett, Tamworth, Littleton. And my father started the business 76 years ago, and we've been a manufacturer of septic tanks, concrete chambers, we sell plastic pipe, we sell a lot of stuff. So because because we sell so much stuff, I'm not as knowledgeable as the gentlemen that have spoken before me. I received a thing that was put out by Infiltrator, and it had to do, and I guess I made 3 of them, 4 of them, and if I could,
Jane has the technology. She knows how to make copies.
share.
Sure.
And,
Do you mind if we make copies of that?
yeah, it's copied.
Perfect. Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, and the writing on it is my extempore, I read it and I go, well, here's my opinion of that. And so they said that concrete chambers and pipe and stone are an unproven, untested effluent dispersal technology, and it wants to circumvent the state water quality rules. Well, pipe and stone has been around since the invention of the septic tank, because where else would it go? The septic tank overflows into pipe and stone. So it's been around, I don't know, at least, okay, to give you a background on me, I'm 68, and I've been at Gilbert, we grew up at Gilbert Block Company. I got brought there when I was 2. So concrete, it's all I know. So yeah, I think pipe and stone has been around probably longer than 60 years. As a matter of fact, so before concrete tanks, there were steel tanks. And let's see, I remember my father telling a story about people, the contractors wanting to keep putting steel tanks in the ground because they rotted out and it gave them something to do in 10 years. But they didn't want my father's concrete tanks because they lasted too long. But we eventually won them over.
As far as the bill's concerned, though, it's moving it from 2 feet,
Yeah.
4 feet to.
Yeah.
Can you talk more succinctly about? Yeah.
Okay. I guess I'll say, I think that there is a picture, I don't know if you haven't probably got it yet. And it's just, I think the 2 feet that we're shooting for I think Infiltrator misrepresents it with their illustration of pipe and stone being at 48, but now they want to be at, they show 18 inches and 6 inches of sand. It's like, come on, it's 2 feet. Don't muddy it up with 18 inches, So I just thought that was, I don't know, not fair.
Okay.
So I thought I'd point it out. And so if they can have 2 feet, and the gentleman behind me have just said that 2 feet works, I think that what would happen is if you put concrete chambers and pipe and stone at a 2 feet of seasonal high water table, the homeowners, actually the designers would probably design for the homeowners, and the homeowners are probably thinking that the designers know what they're doing, so I'll go along with it when in fact concrete chambers is probably the best leach field out there because it's got so much volume to it of air. Pipe and stone, the stone is 50% void. Pipe and stone is, in my opinion, the second best, and concrete's the best. Concrete chambers, they last a very long time, 45 years. We did Londonderry Junior High School, 1,200 chambers, about 55,000 square feet. And I haven't heard of, we did it and haven't heard a peep out of them. And I don't know if maybe city city sewer might have gone by Londonderry Junior High School and they abandoned the leach field, you know, that could have happened. I mean, that does happen in some situations, and people dig up their chambers and sell them to somebody else and they get reused. So I guess I'll say that it's, from the money point of view, I think concrete chambers, they cost a little bit more, but they last 5 and 6 and 7 times longer than these plastic systems.
Interesting.
So if people could have the foresight of they're gonna be in trouble someday soon too, they would spend the extra money, but they don't see it that way. They go for the cheap buck right on day one, and it's the plastic systems. And there have been a lot of plastic systems that have come to town, and they come, they fail, and they go. And the homeowner pays for that.
Interesting.
So, it's big bucks.
Yeah.
As the gentleman that's the installer behind me, it's 30 grand. I was at one yesterday.
Yikes.
And the guy says, the system I had before this one, it lasted 6 years. And now he's got another plastic system. I says, well, start saving.
Questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So I have an interesting situation here. I have a name that doesn't support or oppose, doesn't want to speak, or doesn't. Michael, you just signed up. Do you want to speak?
I would be glad to, yes.
Okay, great. Usually it says support, oppose, speak, or not speak, and it's all kind of blank. So you're welcome to come up and.
Sorry, I thought it was just a sign-in sheet. I should have read a little.
Yep, that's all right. Welcome. And you're a septic designer?
Yes, I'm a septic system designer, installer, and evaluator. I've been licensed in New Hampshire since 2006.
Welcome.
Thank you. Just to give a little bit of background on myself. I've been working in the field for 18 years as a self-employed designer and installer. Recently got out of the excavation business because we're relatively busy in the design business and didn't have enough time for both. I'm not necessarily opposed to change, although I think this bill I think we as New Hampshire residents would benefit from looking at it a little closer. And I've listened to the testimony, and I think everybody's opinion is important and should be taken into account. As a designer, I've learned from square one how to do what I do. I think that I have, we'll say, 3 major roles as a septic designer or installer. Number one, you need to listen to what your client's needs are and try to get them to an end goal, or you haven't done your job. Number two, you need to make it affordable for them, or if they can't afford it, you didn't do them any good either. Number three, we need to make or design something or install something that's environmentally friendly. And as I've heard, and you've heard today, that's quite a debatable topic, what's environmentally friendly. As a young designer, I remember thinking, you know, I do want to always do the right thing by the environment. You know, it's important to me. I'm an outdoorsman, hunter, fisherman, have a house on a lake. I want to see it around for my kids too. So I've read extensively about wastewater treatment. I've immersed my life in it and, you know, everything that I do. In the off months, you know, we have busy season from, say, March till about December. In New Hampshire, in the winter months, we do a few septic designs, but really everything stops from a business standpoint for the most part. So in the winter months, my wife and I do this as a team. We travel all around and we teach classes on quality septic system installation, quality design, and not any particular kind, just septic design and installation in general. We've taught in Massachusetts, we've taught in New Hampshire, Vermont, New York, for instance, and we teach to realtors, we teach to installers, septic evaluators, anybody that, you know, has a lesser understanding and trying to achieve continuing education credits. So I've studied it extensively. The one thing that I'm hearing opinions about, we're confident that it's going to work. Science says 6 inches of sand does the treatment. Has it actually, my question, and I don't know the answer, has it actually been tested? I think there's a test center in Massachusetts called MassTech that may have data that can kind of shed some light on this. I apologize, I didn't have time to look it up, and I don't know if they ever have tested for pipe and stone or chamber system. What's the end result after that 6 inches? Or, more important question, is the 2-foot separation adequate? That's an important question to me when I design a lot of septic systems around lakes, and you know, it's important to protect those waterways. Equally as important with the building boom that we've seen over the last 5 years, or excuse me, the trend of people moving to New Hampshire. We're doing more septic designs now than ever. For sure, you can count on the fact that all the easy lots kind of gotten bought up and developed over time, and I'm sure more easier lots will be created as subdivisions are done. But the lots that I see on a regular basis have wetlands sporadic. They're the lots that didn't sell for the last 20 years. So on a regular basis, we'll average in the busiest months 10 designs a week through our office. We'll average telling 2, 3, 4 of those people, hey, we've got to get a wetland scientist in here and mark these wetland boundaries. Anytime you have a jurisdictional wetland, which is hydric A or B, or poorly drained and very poorly drained soils, we have to meet a setback. DES says if there are any wetlands within 75 feet of your development, they need to be delineated and located on your septic design. And through translation, I believe that is to make sure that we're meeting setbacks, but we're protecting our environment. So if we're designing more septic systems on lots that have nearby wetlands, isn't the point of knowing that for a fact more important?
That's a good question.
And again, I'm not here for or against anybody. I'm here as a designer that loves what he does. I don't have anything to gain or lose from this. If we're gonna make a decision like this, I like to know that it's supported and I can do it in good faith. You know, I've read everything about all the plastic wrap products that we hear about. Very familiar with Presby. I mean, it's 12 miles from where I live. Very familiar with Elgin Systems, very familiar with Chambers, very familiar with Geomat, which is based out of Connecticut, very familiar with other treatment units, Clean Solutions, Orenco, Advantex. And I think that all of those companies went through a testing criteria through the NSF, the National Sanitation Foundation, to establish that they've reduced not just phosphorus or nitrogen, really they reduced the strength of a wastewater. Wastewater is measured by BOD TSS, biological oxygen demand, total suspended solids. It's really, in most cases, a counteractive balance of how much oxygen to digest the suspended solids, or the poo in our wastewater. And if you wanted, traditionally in New Hampshire, if you wanted a reduction from 4 feet to 3 feet or 4 feet to 2 feet to water table, you had to establish that you've reduced those contaminants out of the wastewater to a significant level, from an average wastewater stream out of a septic tank of 240 milligrams per liter to 300, down to less than 30, and I'm not 100% sure on those details, but I bet I'm pretty close.
So let me interject here. So somebody has an old system down at 4 feet. Now there's somebody who wants to build a lot next to this one, and they want to put it at, say, 2 feet. Is this bill going to the best of your knowledge, affect any zoning requirements?
I don't think
as far
so.
as setbacks.
I honestly don't know the full answer, but from a septic system designer and a person who works with people doing subdivisions and land surveyors, when people want to subdivide land, usually the criteria for the subdivision are established by the town, and then there's some basic rules established by New Hampshire DES for subdivision. When we're doing a subdivision, we dig a test pit and establish what they call as a 4K area, I believe 4,000 square feet. That's just a general area saying that no problem, we can fit a pretty good sized septic system here on this lot. If it won't meet the 4K criteria, the DES has allowed us to just simply design a septic system to show that it could fit there. An average septic system, a pipe and stone leach field, is It's variable by percolation rate, but we'll just say 600 square feet is a pretty common number for 3-bedroom. A 3-bedroom Elgin, Presby, Geomat in the area of 250 to 300 square feet, again, depending on perk rate sometimes.
So we can get really lost in the science on this. I'm just curious as far as, so you're not either for or against this, you're just saying,
When we make a decision like this, I think that it should be more understood than we're confident it'll work.
I see.
If we're asking all of these innovative companies to come to us with scientific data from a treatment center, why don't we have that data to support the same reduction for pipe and stone, just because it's tried and true or it's worked? And I'm all for saving my clients money. I'm all for, I'm a consumer as much as that guy that's hiring me, just in a different realm. I'm all for saving money, but is that at the cost of the environment? I don't know, because there's nothing scientific in front of me saying that's acceptable.
Yeah, I don't want to hog all the time.
So-
Other questions from the committee?
I'm a licensed designer in Vermont as well, and I've heard people say different numbers of separation. I believe, I'm pretty sure about this, that separation for pipe and stone is in Vermont. If you want to get a reduction in that separation, you have to use a system that offers filtrate effluent or treatment. So a wastewater treatment tank, or a product that offers, dispersal product that offers treatment, and there's many choices. Maine is the only exception, I think, that is pretty laissez-faire about that separation, like 1 foot, and I can't imagine where they're coming from. Massachusetts, I'm not a designer there, but I'm extremely familiar with their Title V criteria. Pretty certain that it's 4 feet separation there, unless you're using treatment. An advanced treatment unit, they've got a specific acronym, but you can reduce it to 2 feet if you're using treatment. You're reducing tenfold from 240 to 300 BLD to 30. And that's pretty standard in all the states that I've studied. Any state that I've taught classes in, I've taken the time to read, New York in particular, New Hampshire DOH 75A is their rule book. I've read that inside and out and backwards. When I'm presenting, I like to know that at least I understand their rules, and I'm most likely coming from a correct standpoint.
All right. Appreciate your testimony. I still got other people that need to speak, and then I got 3 other bills, so I'm trying to move this along. But there's no other questions, and so thank you very much for your testimony and for your drive here.
Thank you for allowing me to talk.
Absolutely. Dennis Healy.
Oh, I wasn't decided to speak.
Oh, you aren't. You're right. Look at that. That was easy. Thank you. And Gary, you didn't say whether you wanted to speak or not. Gary Spalding? Do you want to speak?
Sure, I wasn't going to, but I'd like to make some comments if I can.
Yeah.
My name is Gary Spalding. I'm the owner of Advanced On-Site Solutions, and I've been licensed designer and installer since 1986. So I think one of the important things this committee is missing, and it has been pointed out, that all the technology that's been approved for 24 or 36 inches to seasonal has been set up and tested against stone and pipe leach fields, even that down at the Mass Test Center. So the way the state rules are to approve it, the quality of effluent at 6 inches below the sand has to be the same for stone and pipe and for the innovative technologies. So there's a lot. So we're focused on that 24 inches to seasonal, but there was 6,072 systems permitted last year, and I'm not sure how many were installed. 80% of those or more were based on innovative technology that already has a separation of 24 inches, based on 6 inches of sand to show that it gets the reduction for BOD, TSS, and other contaminants. So if we want to compare apples to apples in testing, everything has been tested on the same level. The separation to 24 inches to stone and pipe isn't going to have any additional impact on the water quality of the state than the alternative technologies that have already been approved for 24 inches to seasonal separation.
Do you know if this is going to affect any of the zoning ordinances?
So this, as you know, the state, local zoning, health officers, they can create their own criteria that supersedes or as long as they're equal to or greater than the state. So if there's towns of Hampton or in the Seacoast and other areas, if they already have, Pelham, I think, has a 48-inch seasonal requirement. So even if the state passed a 24, if you approved it and agreed with a 24-inch seasonal separation, the town of Pelham, for example, already has a separation. So you wouldn't be able to use the state new rule or this law to overcome that because the zoning controls that.
Right. Yeah.
So they wouldn't have any impact on it.
Questions? Seeing none. I appreciate you stepping up. And I do have a final speaker, and I'm going to have to move the bill right along because I still have a few other bills to go through. And I believe it is David Lentz. Says you want to speak.
Yes.
Oh, looks like you do. Okay. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is David Lentz. I'm a civil engineer with Presby Environmental, located in Whitefield. And Presby is a manufacturer of septic system components. It's been discussed earlier today by other speakers. I just wanted to say my background is that I've spent the past 18 years working for the parent company of Presby Environmental, which is Infiltrator Water Technologies. And the only thing I've done for the company is regulatory affairs. So I've had the opportunity to work across North America, all states, all provinces, and see a lot of different ways septic systems are built. So kind of have a broad view on the industry. So the concern that we have here is that we manufacture products that are approved by the department for placement at 2 feet. And we did that because we tested our products through third parties. We provided test data that indicated those systems met the state water quality standards. And one of the important points I think that should be made is the requirement, if you have, it's called an ITA product. If you want an ITA approval, you need to show that your system is equivalent after 2 feet of, well, after 2 feet of soil passage, that's the equivalent for 5 parameters that would be gained from 4 feet of soil. So there's 2 parameters under the organics that are in wastewater, then there's phosphorus, nitrogen, and fecal coliform. So it's a stringent requirement, and the concern that we have is creating a level playing field. So there should be testing if all systems are going to 2 feet. I did want to address the email that was circulated earlier. I brought a show and tell here. This is,
oh, we like that.
This is at the bottom of the email that was circulated earlier, and on the left-hand side it shows where a rock trench would be positioned today, which was 4 feet. And I'm not talking about a repair system where there's a failure, but a new system would be 4 feet above the ground, the seasonal high water table. The way the bill is written, it says that the bottom of the system would be at 2 feet and that the 6 inches of sand is underlain by the system. So that means that the bottom of the sand is 18 inches above the seasonal high water table. So now I don't know if that's inadvertent the way it's written or if that was purposeful, but that is, the terminology does allow that. So the bottom of the system itself is 2 feet and then 6 inches below. But as you can see, there's a, you're reducing by half the amount of soil that is below the system. I have 4 concerns with this bill, and the first is that I believe that it relaxes water quality protection. Without testing that's commensurate with the testing that industry has submitted to the department, without that testing for a rock system or a chamber system, it doesn't seem like there's been an equal vetting of the proposed use of the rock and concrete chamber systems. I'd also like to point out, when you look at the system design, most the systems that I'm familiar with that have ITA approvals, they're surrounded by sand.
Okay, what is ITA approvals?
ITA is Innovative Technology Approval. So when you look at what's on the right-hand side here, there's only sand below the trench. there's no sand on the sides. The products that are approved today for 2 feet of placement, they have sand all around. So the sand does a lot of heavy lifting, but it's also combined with a product that's specifically engineered to provide a portion of the treatment. Rock trenches and concrete chambers don't provide treatment. The company I work for, we make chambers. We're the largest chamber manufacturer in the world. They're made out of thermoplastic, but whether it's a concrete chamber or a plastic chamber, they do the same thing. And there isn't a single state or province that grants a reduction in vertical separation for adding 6 inches of sand below either a chamber system or a rock system in North America. So the water quality is a concern because we should all be playing on the same playing field and having the same requirements applied. I'd also like to point out in the DES letter on House Bill 1113, it talks about concerns over septic systems that are not functioning properly, that were not designed properly, not maintained properly, and the effects on lakes and surface water bodies, and that it's a contributor to lake health and poor lake health. When you're moving systems that aren't specifically engineered to treat wastewater down to 2 feet above the water table, the risk that there are more of those systems out there that could affect lake health increases. The second concern I have is that I feel like there's a double standard here. Industry has been held up here in terms of its test data, and we have the proposal for rock and pipe and chamber that doesn't have the test data that industry's been required to provide to the department. We should all have the same. Third is the lack of national precedence. I have the opportunity to work across the nation. I've never seen a provision like this in a state or provincial rule, policy, or law that allows a reduction in the seasonal high water table with the addition of a sand layer. Mike Carbonneau talked about other states. You know, Massachusetts has a variable distance to the seasonal high water table depending on the level of treatment. So there's no risk, you know, and even the US EPA guidance talk on wastewater system talks about assessing risk by soil type. This is just a broad brush, one-size-fits-all requirement with no assessment of risk based on the type of soil, the conditions at the site. Everything could go to 2 feet. And as far as national precedence goes, we see states going in the other direction. Massachusetts is strengthening its protections on wastewater systems near surface water bodies. The Florida legislature is spending hundreds of millions of dollars a year addressing the fact that they, for a long time, built septic systems too close to the water table, and they're grappling with nitrogen problems. Lastly, my concern is, you know, the intent. How much money is really going to be saved here? Does this meet the intent that was expressed in the presentation to the House on saving money? Does it really move the needle, and is it necessary? I just want to wrap up by saying that I'm a New Englander like you. I was born and raised in Connecticut. I don't live here. But I can't tell you how many people that are, you know, Connecticut residents, you say, what are you doing on vacation this summer? You know where they're coming? Here. Over and over. My children have, when they selected on their own where to go on vacation, they've come here. I've come here. I know people with second homes here. So you have something special in this state, and I think this is an opportunity to keep that something special the way it is by keeping the separation at 4 feet. Thank you.
Questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much, and thank you for bringing us something to look at. I need to move the hearings along because we still have other bills, but I want to thank everybody for testifying. And we're going to close the hearing on HB 1139, and I need to open up the next hearing, 1141. And hear from the prime sponsor. Welcome back.
Thank you once again. For the record, Mark McConkey, represent the good people of Carroll County District 8. I'm here to introduce House Bill 1141 relative to the requirements for approval to increase load to sewage disposal systems. I was consulted and asked by the department to bring this forward. I just quickly will say that when we're speaking of the Lakes region, Many times, properties are sold. One owner will say to the other, I have a three-bedroom home. It's purchased. The new buyer will say, well, geez, this is a wonderful opportunity for a larger rental. They will then increase the loading. They will find out when the system fails that they never had approval for what they started out with, or it was much smaller. So the intention is to change the regulation so that any increase in flow, bedrooms, change of use, will trigger the need for a new design, so that we know when the system goes short circuits, that there will be a system that can be put in place. I'm happy to take questions. I think it's very important, especially in light of the conversation we're having this morning, and I'm sure the department will elaborate beyond that.
Thank you for your testimony. No questions? Appreciate it. Well, will the department want to come up? Philip?
Okay, hello again.
Welcome back.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Philip Trowbridge, Manager of Land Resources, Department of Environmental Services. The department supports HB 1141. The statute as written has a few ambiguities that we think should be cleared up. The way it is written now, sometimes it can be interpreted that the only time we can require something for an expansion of use is if it goes to a full-time basis. Whereas we all know there are times when you can add on to the structure or increase the load due to like home kitchens, and there's a lot of work on that, or a lot of cases of that recently. So we just think it's clear to say, hey, if it's increasing the load, you need to come in for a permit.
And the load is?
The load is the wastewater load.
All right, so if you add another living room, that's not increasing the load, that's just?
Correct, yeah, it'd be adding the bedrooms and things.
So this will affect local zoning?
No, I don't think it will affect local zoning, because those requirements, as the gentleman in the previous hearing stated, whatever is the local zoning, it governs. This sets a minimum standard. And there are cases, there's another part of this bill which deals with cases where there's no increase in load, and I just want to highlight those. Mm-hmm. When the statute was written, it allowed for no permits if you didn't increase the load, but you're making some change to the structure if the property was over 5 acres. And I think the concept was if it's just a single house on 5 acres, really, they're not going to be affecting anybody else. What it didn't consider were things like mobile home parks, where you can have a more than 5 acre lot that's one owner, but could have 20 structures on it. Now, if someone is replacing a structure, given that those systems could be 50 years old at this point, we think it's prudent to require upgrade of the system, and that happens.
Senator Bristol?
So, question, how would it affect, we are going to be hearing a bill, or one of the committees, probably yours, is going to be hearing a bill to add additional accessory dwelling units to properties, mm-hmm. Which is going to increase the wastewater issue. Mm-hmm. How would that affect? For every accessory dwelling unit, do they have to? So if they have one already, mm-hmm. and they want to add 2 more mm-hmm. accessory dwelling units, will that trigger them to come out and look and say you have to replace your system?
Thank you for the question, and it's an excellent one. What it would require, basically the bottom line is for any kind of development of a property, the department cares that there's adequate capacity for treating the wastewater. And so in a case where, let's take 2 examples. One is there's a house with an ADU and they want to add a second one. And they have the capacity in their wastewater, in the on-site system to handle the second one. All they have to do is apply to the department and show that they have that capacity. It's not a replacement of the system is not required. In a case where they don't have capacity, let's say they're maxed out at their current use, they'd have to apply to the department and get a replacement design which shows that they do have the space on their lot to put in a system with the capacity. We don't require them to install that system immediately. Basically, what you're making sure is that they have the space, and that if the system does get overloaded or goes into failure, it can be replaced on the size of the lot that they have.
Seeing no further questions, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Gary, it doesn't say whether you want to speak or not.
No, I do support the bill.
Oh, you do? Okay. All right, and I have nobody else to speak on this, so with that, we will close the hearing and move on to our next one. Mind, thank you. And we'll hear from the prime sponsor of 1142.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You might recognize me in this chair and the shoulders and the weight I hold for the department. Once again, I was brought in and consulted, and I've had discussion with many individuals in my area. I'm looking to take the test. I've worked for someone. I want to be an installer. I want to be a designer. And the process and how long it takes to get in the queue and to take the test. Unfortunately, what is being lost in our industry is I sit in a backhoe and I do some digging. Today it's excavators. I still own one, but it's excavators. And it seems like a pretty easy process. And they don't have the real world experience. They're not the guys that started out with a wooden folded ruler figuring out heights, or dropped a pop level to see where I am on an elevation, or strung 100-foot tape. Many of the younger people coming into the world now have the ability to draw on a CAD program, and many of the approved product sellers have the apps already, and you drop it in place. So there's a disconnect between the real world and not. I will tell you that when I started down this road, it took me 2 attempts to get through the field testing. I like to say Mark has never taken a test that he can't take twice. But what's happening now is the system is getting clogged up by people that haven't decided I have an issue and I need to find a way to become better educated in it. And we have several people that have approached our company because we have a fairly good name in our area. Hey, can we come intern? What can we do? So I brought this forward. There is an issue. The failure rate typically is 70 to 80% of all those people that take the test do not pass.
Like an insurance exam.
Yeah, I stay in the dirt. I don't venture out of my lane. But in insurance and in other professions, there is an education process, and you could pay a firm to help you understand what that test is and how to do it. That doesn't exist in our business. From a purely practical point of view, less designers, less installers make Mark more money. But the truth of the matter is we need somehow to shepherd these people forward, as I did for my sons. And it wasn't until they were in the business for years and learned the 2 basic instruments in construction, a shovel and a rake, did they ever get their fanny inside an excavator. So I support the proposal, and I will allow the department and others to speak advantages or disadvantages.
So could you at least read for the audience what the bill does?
Oh, thank you. I apologize. I've had so much fun here, I forgot my responsibility. House Bill 1142, relative to the eligibility of permits for septic designer program. This bill requires individuals who do not pass the sewage and waste disposal system installer permit examination to demonstrate additional training in the trade of septic system installation to be eligible to take the examination again. Thank you for that correction, sir.
Well done. Good job. Questions from the committee? Senator Pearl?
No,
All right, I saw you nod your
I
head.
know, I'm thinking.
Yeah, just thinking. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, something was burning. Yeah. Gary, opposed, but it doesn't say whether you want to speak or not.
Sure, I would like to speak. I wasn't sure I was going to. Again, Gary Spalding. Can you hear my microphone?
Yeah. And for future reference, if you want to speak, please sign up and say one way or the other. But you did good. Good job.
Thank you. I apologize for not checking that. So I oppose it, and I have a mixed reaction to this bill. I agree with what Representative McConkey has said, that the industry is lacking in education, and there are people who are taking the tests that aren't qualified, and how do we get those people educated or not take the test and take up space, because there's limited spaces. The reason I'm on the fence on, and I wrote down opposed, is that I do offer a class that I started last year, and I was asked by a number of designers and installers to teach a class. UNH is also offering one. Chris Elbert teaches that class. And the issue I have is trying to get, in the past, has been trying to get information from the department on what's on the test. We can't have an education program if we can't get support from the department telling us exactly what they want to see. It's only until recently in January when they finally met with us to talk about the test, and I had been waiting. My first request about the test was back in August of last year. So it took from August until January to actually meet with the department to discuss the test. So I would support the bill if the department was going to be more open and willing to talk to myself, people like myself or UNH, exactly what's on the test and how do we go about and train people to get them up to the level of experience that they need to do it. That's the important thing. So just to pass this bill and say further education without defining who is going to create the criteria, how is it going to go about, everyone in this room would have a different opinion on how it should be done. And that's where I think the problem with the test is, and the failure rate is so high, because up until January, there wasn't really any clear indication on what would be on the test, other than the response from the department was, you need to know the rules and you need to have some experience.
So do you have any ideas for an amendment?
I don't have any ideas for amendment right now. I think it's premature to do this until they revamp the test and make it so that people who are in the industry that want to teach it have a better understanding of what to teach.
Yeah. Senator Pearl.
Thank you. Thanks for taking my question. I guess the thing I'm struggling with is that sometimes taking the test provides you with the areas that you're weak in and you need to go and study that again. And I mean, I've failed tests in my life as well, and that's kind of how you learn. You go back and you study the areas that you thought you knew, or maybe you didn't realize you needed to know. And I guess I'm just concerned about what you would demonstrate for additional training in order to get there to be qualified to take the test again. I mean, again, life experience of taking the test, maybe the additional training you needed to identify your weak areas of study. Just maybe share your thoughts on that a little.
Thank you, Senator Porter. So one of the things that has come up with people who have taken the class last year with me in August, and I'm doing a spring review for the same people who didn't pass it, is that trying to get information out of the department, the people who are responsible for the test, on what the deficiencies are. So typically, if we were to take a test, and if there was 4 sections to it, and if we failed 1 or 2 sections, we would be told where our deficiencies were, not just vague answers that you need to study more for this particular set of rules, or you need to get more practical experience. There has to be a mechanism from the state's point that tells an individual that passed or fails the test where the deficiency is, and be be specific where that failure is. Is it on tank sizing? Is it on soils? Is it on lot sizing? Not just a generalization that says you need to study the ENV 1000 rules more closely. That doesn't help the person that has failed the test. So it has to be a better mechanism to let people know where they need to study more.
Any follow-up?
Follow?
So if I'm understanding you correctly, once you've taken the test, you don't get to see your results, or just a breakdown of that you failed and you need to, this generalization, is that what you're saying?
That's correct. You get a letter back that says what your grade was, and then a very simple letter that says you need to study these sections more. You aren't allowed to go review the test. In one recent person that I was in my class had asked about sending in information for clarification on the exam, particular problems, and they were told they could, only to be redacted later from the department, from an individual department said they can't answer those questions.
Thank you.
We appreciate your input. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Philip, wanting to speak, very neutral.
I bet he already knows the question I'm going to ask.
Yes.
Yeah, if you could touch on that already,
Yeah.
that'd be great.
Yeah, so on, for the record, Philip Trowbridge, Manager of Land Resources. The department takes no position on this bill, but it offers the following comments. Although the information's been provided already, I would say that the department offers this exam twice a year, and we generally receive more applicants than we can accommodate in the space and seats that we have available. Unfortunately, many of the people taking the test or signing up for the exam, have failed it multiple times before. And the department is primarily a permitting agency, not a license, not a educational program. So we've been running this program with the staff that we have. In the last year, we realized, of course, that we needed to make some changes here. The low pass rate is concerning to us on many levels. We hired a person specifically to handle this exam, and a lot of the complaints Mr. Spalding mentions are things that we already have in progress to improve. We've organized the exam so that we can give people a feedback as to when they get their grade, it won't just be a single grade. It'll tell you in what areas were you deficient. We have had challenges with showing someone their exam because we don't have the capacity to generate a new exam every 6 months because of the questions. Because when we give someone their exam, it then goes out into the world and it is then used as, this is what's the exam.
Yeah.
And what is the answer on this? So for us to randomize that or somehow generate whole new plans, because basically the exam consists of a number of questions that you'd expect in a typical exam, but it has designs and plans that someone needs to work off of. To create a whole new set of those each time is really more than we have the capacity to do. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the reasons why it's been a challenge for us. But we are concerned about that, both from a workforce development and a customer service point of view. So we have been trying to make that improvement by hiring this new individual who's greatly improved the exam, in my opinion. He's improved the readability of it, improved the organization of it, and for this next exam that we're offering in the spring, we've gone through to make sure that the questions are clear and are answerable. We've also had meetings with Mr. Spalding and others, about what their preparatory exams are, or preparatory courses are, to help facilitate better communication. So one of the parts of the bill allows for rulemaking authority for the department regarding this program, which we don't have currently. Right now, it's all based on statute. That's where we would that's where we would put in what do we mean by acceptable training. That would be a public process through the administrative rules process.
I know Senator Waters had a question about rules.
Thank you. And you heard the comments earlier about what to do and what this training means. Would that be something you could address under the rulemaking that's added in this bill?
Yes, it could be. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm trying to say, that you would perhaps find a way in rules so that some of those concerns could be addressed.
Yeah, that would be, yeah, we recognized the statutory language we're talking about here mirrors what's used for the Water Well Board when they have their own rules. So our idea was that we were going to have sort of parallel structure for the rules.
Senator Pearl?
Thank you. And thanks for touching on the reasons. I guess I understand the difficult position you're in.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things we're always looking at in here and in my other committee in ED&A is how do we not have government be a barrier to business? And right now it sort of feels like you only offering the test 2 times a year and not having space enough for all of the individuals that want to take it is sort of a barrier. How do we fix that? Any thoughts on how we address that?
It's an excellent question, and I think there's the big picture for us is workforce development. We've started having discussions with NHTI and the other community college systems for a non-degree program, credential programs, to help people get the training that they aren't getting because of the loss of the other opportunities. Formerly, let's say a decade ago, we had the Thompson School at UNH, which is a very practical program related to surveying, site work, that kind of thing. That program does no longer exist. There's a similar program in Vermont that also does no longer exists. What we would like to see is that the community college systems, which can be more affordable, develop these credentialed programs to help people get into the industry, not just in terms of septic system installation and design, but also wetland science, well drilling. I mean, you can think of this as a whole kind of water professional career development through the community college systems. That's the big picture. We're working slowly on that. We've got one course set up with NHTI on soils, and we're hoping to build out from there. And obviously, we would appreciate any support that you all may have on that. In the short term, what we are trying to do here is not be a barrier to the people who are prepared to take the test. Because right now, we get people who, we set aside 100 seats. We think that's enough. We have 125 who mailed in applications for this exam. We found a way to accommodate them. We've expanded. We did another day. But among that, some of the people who might come in next week and say, sorry, I didn't hear about it. I want to take it. It's really too late. We can't expand it again. That person may be perfectly qualified, but there are 80 people who already have taken a seat who aren't. And so I think what we're trying to do is, make it not be a barrier for the people who are ready to take the test.
Yeah.
Is it possible perhaps to offer 3 times a year instead of 2? I mean, I know there'd be some cost associated with that. Is that something that could be considered to? I understand what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
I get it. I'm a little bit concerned that we look at this sometimes. This may not be the case here. Sometimes we see bills like this because they're protectionism from the industry that's trying to slow down the licensing. I don't feel that's the case here necessarily.
Yeah.
But is it possible perhaps for you to offer a 3rd time a year for testing? That maybe would alleviate some of that, because every 6 months is a long time, and if somebody is a little bit tardy on finding out about it, which I guess shame on them, but I understand life gets in the way sometimes of all of us, and is there a possibility to perhaps add in additional testing?
It is possible. It's certainly in our ability to do that. And in the past, we have done that. We've offered it on almost a rolling basis, every month or every 2 weeks, and it just became too much for the department. So I think we're in a kind of an ebb and flow pattern between where, we were doing that a lot. And of course, the more you do it, the harder it is to change the exam. And so you have to be even more restrictive into what's on the exam.
Understood.
And, we are, recognize that our significant amount of staff time was going into administering and proctoring and grading the exam, sometimes for people taking it, 3rd, 4th, 5th time. And that what got us to, let's do it every 6 months, do it in a concentrated way. As all programs do, they tend to, ebb and flow, I guess. So, we'd certainly be open to offering it more. It's just that we really want to move the needle in terms of the pass rate and not just the number of people taking the test.
Understood. Thank you.
Senator Bretzel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for taking my question. Would the department be open, if you're going to be looking at starting a program with community colleges, would the department be open to having, once you get the program up and running, to have the community colleges administer the tests and take it off your plate?
Yeah, the department is not, we have done this for now because we have a strong relationship with our designers and installers, and it's beneficial that we have that connection. The test does not need to be administered by the department. We find that when we've talked about programs that are like done by OPLC and other licensing, agencies, they tend to be a little bit more national standard programs. And as you may have heard, understood from this morning, that septic system requirements are kind of unique to each state. And so it's a little bit more challenging to think of that going to a, kind of one of those programs that handles, licenses where there's reciprocity and often more of a national standard. So that's one of the reasons why we've kept it in the department, to keep it, tailored to what the requirements are for New Hampshire and for the department in particular. But we know it does not need to be done by the department. I think we prefer it to be done that way, but in short answer to your question, it does not need to be done that way.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any further questions? No. Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony.
All right, thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Chris, you're my, I think it's Chris. Welcome back.
Welcome back. Thank you. Again, for the record, my name is Christopher Albert. I'm a licensed septic designer, and I'm actually the other participant that teaches. I'm a little sore right now. I actually taught a 2-hour class, our last class to the students.
Rough
I work
class,
with,
huh? Rough class.
About 5 to 7 after a full day. Yeah. So, sorry, my hoarseness, but
That's all right.
yeah, this is really a first step. Again, Gary and I did finally meet. I should say finally, but we did meet with DES. They understand. I mean, this was my 3rd session teaching at UNH for people who want to become designers, installers, and so far, for the last 2, they've all failed. I mean, I've had licensed professional engineers and licensed land surveyors taking it, who are pretty geared up in test taking, and they failed it. So I think with Gary, Mr. Spalding, and myself working with the department, going over some of the things that we hear back, because I have people that are taking it for the 3rd time, and going over the questions, and going over that with the department, they've kind of taken out some of those aspects. So I think this next round will be a real true test for the passing rate, for at least for a lot of the installers. I mean, I teach the class, and the people come out of it like, wow, now I get it. And I think, we really need some type of apprentice program. I work as an engineer, I work as a land surveyor. We all had apprentice programs growing up. This is probably one of the only ones that doesn't have such a thing. I'm on the board for the New Hampshire Water Works, where we actually do the training for water operators, and it's a scale type learning process. So again, this is kind of a unique situation where the subsurface department has been running this. And I think we're in a positive state to move forward. So this is a start. Again, so I'm in favor of what we're going for so far. Thank you.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I should have asked this of Phil, and thanks for taking my question and coming in today. I didn't think of it, but you may know the answer, and Phil may be able to shake his head if you're not. Is there an educational requirement before you take the test?
No.
There's
no. I mean, they're trying. If you have the amended version, I believe, when the bill was first presented to the House, it had an amendment where it actually wanted 1 to 2 years of experience. As an installer, like you said, you're running equipment, you've got to be able to use a pop level type of things like that. There's not really an educational standpoint. As a designer, they pass the field portion, then they have to, I do teach a soils class too at UNH for test pits. That's really where the rubber hits the road. The people that are really green for the design work, if they can't pass the test pit log portion, the second part of the test, then they're out. Because again, that whole water table we just talked about, if people can't nail where that seasonal water table is, that's a really bad decision going on right now. So, but yeah, so there's no educational degree, any type of aspect.
If we pass this bill, would you feel like it might push people who have tried to take the test and fail to maybe attend a class like yours before they go a second time?
I think that's the intent. A lot of these people are third and fourth timers. That when there's a waiting list for Gary's, Mr. Spalding's class, and myself backed up. I teach 6 nights from 5 to 7 and try to set it up pre-test so they're kind of fresh in their brain. And we want to keep people educated. We want people, workforce housing. We want, workforce. We want people to be able to work out there. So I don't want to deny people. That's the whole edge of making it too difficult from an educational standpoint, especially for an installer who, should be able to get out there. If they're doing site work, building a house, they should be able to know how to put in a septic system.
All right, thanks. I'll leave it there.
Senator Waters?
Yeah, thank you. Is there any component or way your course can be offered remote, or somehow that there might be an offering up at White Mountain for the North Country?
I actually did that. It's very hard with the way UNH's projector was set up to actually try to do a Teams or remote with them. It's really hands-on. I do math problems, and I like to walk around at each desk and really go over different aspects of the rules and how, for the design part, they have to do 4 out of 5 designs. So I'm actually giving them rough examples. So it's really hands-on. I do teach for the T2 program at UNH for the culvert maintainer, and we did remote during COVID. It doesn't work. Yeah. It's really, I always say you want to have the donut to hit the guy that's sleeping in the stand, type of thing.
I thought that's what the answer was going to be, basically. But is there any chance you could do it up north?
I was doing it at the UNHP's office, and I did move it here to Manchester to the Brady Sullivan. We can probably go up maybe a little bit. So I try to use Manchester Concord as the center of the state. When we did do at Pease, I did have people driving from Lancaster, driving 2.5 hours for a 2-hour class.
That's what I was wondering.
No, we don't. I don't mind. It's the problem with me. I'm driving. I live in Nottingham, so I'm driving that distance too.
Okay. Thank you.
Nottingham.
Thank you very much for your testimony. We really appreciate it. And you are our final speaker on that. So with that, we will close the hearing. Oh.
I'll be brief.
I didn't see your name on there, so I apologize.
No, that's not you, it's me.
Yeah.
I was just sitting here thinking.
That sounds like you just broke up with me.
Yeah, but we both use fabric softener. Look at that.
We don't drink it. Okay.
Okay, so food for thought. I just asked the Senate to think about this. We've had this program since I've been at the department where we permit. These are permits. We would be more than tickled if the Senate thinks going forward if this whole program went to OPLC. And I'm being serious here now. This is a lot of babysitting on our part. We spend an inordinate amount of time trying to get people through this process. I'm licensed through OPLC. Phil is licensed through OPLC. That seems to be a program that now issues a license, not a permit. So as you think through this process coming forward, and maybe we'll come in next year with a bill, but we would not be heartbroken if this went right to OPLC.
And that won't slow the process down?
No, but what it'll do is it'll save a lot of our staff time. Number one, we've got 3 vacancies in the program, and we just don't have time to be hand-holding. And candidly, we shouldn't have to. So, PG license, PE licenses, all OPLC. You have to pass the exam to get there. And if this were taken out of the department and went as now a license instead of a permit, we would not take personal offense to that.
So OPLC is a babysitting?
That would go to my other committee, so I'm just deciding which committee I want to hear it.
Thanks. If you can be brief. Yep.
Sorry I did not sign up for this, but I think I can offer a little insight. I think I hear and share everybody's concerns in this room. First of all, I work with DES every day. We are first name.
Introduce yourself.
Michael Carbonneau, licensed designer, installer, evaluator. And I know Gary Spalding awfully well, never met Chris, but I understand his concerns. My wife and I have been wanting to teach a class in the North Country. We live in Littleton, and we've considered it. We spoke with the department, with Don Bucher, and wonderful lady. I think her hands are tied in my question and response with her that, okay, we'd love to teach a class. We see that the pass failure rate is horrible, and we love doing it. I want to encourage people to do what I do. I like what I do. But I don't want to be part of teaching something when I have no understanding of what the state's going to ask. We've asked Don, say, can we take a look at the test? We go over it, well, no, I can't show you the test. That's crazy. Well, what am I going to teach against? Anytime I've ever taken a test, I took a 12-week class in college. They taught me about it. They gave me a textbook to go by. They drilled it into my head 3 hours a week, and then I took a test. And if I didn't pass that test, it's because I simply didn't rehearse what was going on. I understand where Gary's coming from. It's like we're trying to do our best to teach. I'm teaching installing quality installation classes, but I just don't want to have 30 or 40 people that sign up for my class get a 0 failure rate. I don't want to be a part of that. And,
So
and
there's
I'm
gonna be
not
some kind of
shooting down the
communication.
department. I work with their staff every day. Honest to God, they're wonderful. And I used to work for the Department of Ed. I understand the struggles they're up against, but I think that when you have a 0% fail rate, you got to ask yourself, is the test are they asking the wrong questions? Good chance that needs to some looking at. Are the teachers presenting the wrong thing? Probably. They don't know what to present. So I think maybe some intertwining there would be a wonderful thing. And offering it at the tech up north, yeah, I took a designer installer class with
I got to move this along.
Doug
real quick.
Smith.
So
I drove to Manchester for that.
Senator Pearl with a question.
You just heard Mr. Pelletier's discussion about moving this from a permit to a license. What are your thoughts?
Honest to God, I always thought I was licensed. And then in the last 6 months, I've done a lot of reading about several topics that have come before you, realized that it's actually a permit. What's the harm in making it a license?
With that, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we're going to close the hearing and open up the hearing to HB 1490. I still have one more bill after this one, so I'm not trying to be rude, but I've got to move these things along.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Ebel couldn't be here, so I'm Senator David Waters to introduce House Bill 1490. This is a request of the department. You'll see there's a series of definitional changes and enhancements here about what an abutter is. You have end of life. You heard a lot about end of life yesterday, Mr. Chairman, but this is about motor vehicles, okay? Definition of end of life motor vehicles. Also, the addition of the word terminate in terms of what can be done to a permit, and then another reference to a different section of RSA on line 24, and then adding the word terminated again down on line 28 as it was up above. Department's here. I will close at that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And seeing no further questions, we'll, Sarah? I'm losing you two?
No, I'm here till 11:40.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. It's good to be back with you. For the record, my name is Sarah Uhas Kern, and I serve as the Assistant Director of the Waste Management Division at DES. Thanks for the opportunity to testify on House Bill 1490. DES supports this bill, and this is actually a bill that we requested. We see it as a bill that provides some clarity on a few items that are currently in the solid waste statute, and that's RSA 149M. I'll just take a couple minutes to quickly go through the improvements that are in this bill. The first is regarding the definition of the word abutter in the solid waste statute, and it clarifies that in addition to an abutter meaning the person who owns property next to a proposed facility or across a railroad from a proposed facility, it also includes a person who owns property across a utility corridor from a proposed facility, and it changes the word stream, referring to abutters across a stream, to water course, just to be more inclusive. And the reason that the term abutter is important in this statute is because abutters are afforded a number of notifications in the permitting process for a prospective facility. An applicant wishing to propose a new solid waste facility must notify abutters of details about their proposal, and they must notify abutters about a public hearing that's coming up on a proposed facility. So we see this as an improvement because it allows for some more inclusivity for abutters. The second item is that the bill clarifies the existing definition of end-of-life motor vehicle, which are mentioned in the statutes with regard to motor vehicle salvage yard facilities. What the bill does is it adds that motor vehicle is as defined in RSA 25960, which is the state's motor vehicle statute. Third, the bill provides DES with the authority to terminate a permit. Right now, the way the statute reads, permits are continuous in duration, and we can revoke permits for, say, a bad actor. But when a facility wants to close and stop doing the permitted activity they've been doing, say a facility that has processed scrap metal, we don't currently have a way to terminate their permit, and that just sort of leaves them hanging. So we see this as a positive way to tie up some loose ends. And the final thing this bill does is it corrects a drafting omission dating back to the 2019 legislative session. Senate Bill 163, back then, amended the timelines for review of solid waste facility permit applications that are included in RSA 149M98. But the corresponding language in another section of the solid waste statute was not amended at the same time. So this just adds corresponding language to RSA 149M12 to clear up an inconsistency that currently exists in the statute. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify. We see this bill as just doing some housekeeping and clarifying the existing statute, and I'm happy to answer questions that you might have.
Thank you very much. Questions from the committee? Seeing none. And you are our closing speaker, so well
Thank you
done.
very much.
And we're going to close the hearing on this because we have nobody else to speak on it. And we will listen to the next bill, which is HB 1499. Hear from the prime sponsor.
He's not here.
HB 1499.
See if he's here.
Rep. Wilhelm.
I'd be glad to introduce if he's not here. He's the minority leader.
If you'd like to.
Yeah. They don't find him out there. I'll go introduce. Is there any other reps here for this?
Rep. Nick Germain. Germano was here, but okay. Please introduce yourself.
Turn your mic.
Is this your first time?
This is my first time. I'm so nervous. Thank you. And of course, you know, it's not my first time talking about a bill I really don't know anything about, but that's okay. That's like my own bills, right? I'm Senator David Waters, District 4. Yeah, you know. Here to introduce House Bill 1499. This is establishing a committee to study the civilian clean energy, community resilience, and conservation core. There's a little bit of background to this. This is a national movement, and we see some federal movement in this direction as a way to have young people who really want to be committed to public service have this opportunity in these areas. Although I was not alive back then, I certainly see all around us in New Hampshire the results of the Civilian Conservation Corps. Think of the Deerfield campgrounds and so much that was built that time, and you know, really the effects it had on young people's lives to be able to participate in this. What the approach that ST&E took in the House, and you'll see this came through with a very strong vote, which is a good indication of its bipartisan support, was establish a committee to look at how this might be done. We've got some House members, and I bet you we're going to have one Senate member instead of two, but who knows. And then it outlines the duties of the committee. And I think this is what's really important starting on line 11. What do we mean by this? What would a civilian national service program or programs be, and what particularly be the local needs of that? What kind of project could people want to work here in the state? I think it's also, and I can see in some ways ST&E written all over this, and perhaps the chairman, the cost-benefit analysis, right? That what are we going to, if we put these folks to work on these projects, what are we going to get from it? What are the benefits going to be? I think it's awfully important too to notice down on the bottom towards the bottom of the first page, the effort that is made to make sure that we're not looking for state expenditures here. That this is looking at partnerships, it's looking at grants, and it's looking at other ways to identify nonprofit sector organizations that can help administer it. And if we have our real sponsor here.
Great.
I think I did a wonderful job.
Thank you, Senator.
Go for it.
Representative Wilhelm, no soup for you. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Apologies for my tardiness. Good to see you all and really appreciate the opportunity to talk about House Bill 1499. And I didn't catch all of what... It was absolutely brilliant. And to build on that brilliance, I do want to just share that I got my start in public service serving as an AmeriCorps member. It was my first job after graduating from Plymouth State College. I was a team leader for City Year New Hampshire, a nonprofit organization now based in Manchester, training and supporting a diverse team of young adults from all different backgrounds and walks of life from all over the country who came together to serve as AmeriCorps National Service members in some of our state's highest need and most under-resourced public schools, serving as full-time tutors and mentors and role models for a modest living allowance and an education award that's equal to the Pell Grant, which I used to help pay back my student loans. That experience changed my life. It jump-started my career. Honestly, looking back, it was the very best job that I've ever had. And it started me down a lifelong path of public service. And so it's in that rich bipartisan tradition of civilian national service, which dates back to the 1930s and 40s, with the Civilian Conservation Corps, whose legacy can be experienced to this day at Bear Brook State Park and other really incredible sort of hands-on projects that continue on to this day that families all across our state continue to enjoy. But it's not just the kind of physical structures of the Civilian Conservation Corps, but it's the legacy of service of the hardworking men who went on to serve in the military, to work for the state of New Hampshire, to start businesses, and even serve in the New Hampshire House of Representatives. Like me, they got their start serving their communities and their country as civilian national service members, tackling the challenges of their time. And for them, it was conservation, it was planting trees, it was protecting public forests from the ravages of fires and erosion and insect pests and plant diseases, opening up some of America's most beautiful wilderness areas by constructing roads and trails and building useful facilities like bathhouses and picnic pavilions. So it's inspiring to know that the current national service members stand on the shoulders of the giants who came before them. And it's upon the continued bipartisan legacy of national service over the last 30 years with AmeriCorps that I come to you with to propose this next chapter of national service in the state of New Hampshire, which is the Clean Energy, Community Resilience, and Conservation Corps. So House Bill 1499 prepares the state of New Hampshire to be competitive when applying for federal funds through AmeriCorps, specifically for the purpose of establishing this type of focused youth civilian national service corps that provides valuable hands-on career training, supports clean energy, community resilience, and conservation efforts across the state, and it mobilizes young people to come together across difference to make a difference, which is something I think we can all agree we need more of right now. So this core would be designed to build upon the existing network of AmeriCorps programs through Volunteer New Hampshire, which is our state's commission for national and community service, and local nonprofit organizations like the Student Conservation Association, whose national headquarters is actually in Charlestown, New Hampshire, and the flagship program operates out of Bear Brook State Park. These programs are already accomplishing really important work like wildfire remediation, resiliency, disaster response, and workforce development. But they also, the goal of this would be to establish some new programs that address specific needs in communities across our state. You're probably wondering what that looks like in action. And I think that's really up to the members of the study committee to decide. But other pilot programs across the country are doing important work to reduce carbon emissions, save energy costs by weatherizing homes and public buildings, performing energy audits, installing solar panels, and other renewable energy systems. AmeriCorps members are supporting urban areas by creating and maintaining city parks and green spaces, improving stormwater management, recycling, maintaining urban farms. And then AmeriCorps members are reducing greenhouse gas emissions associated with food systems through community gardens, farm-to-table initiatives, reducing food waste and nutrition education, and whether in response to or in preparation for the increasing likelihood of natural disasters, AmeriCorps members help communities prepare, respond, and recover from natural disasters. We want to be well positioned to make our case to the federal government, to AmeriCorps, that New Hampshire is ready to stand up a clean energy, community resilience, and conservation corps in New Hampshire, and that's what this bill would do. It would convene stakeholders from executive departments, the national service field, local community leaders, nonprofit organizations, high schools, institutions of higher ed, employers, bring them together to help shape, launch, and then sustain a program that will meet the needs of the Granite State. So over the summer and fall, I would expect the committee to identify public, private, and nonprofit funding sources, community needs, and potential partnerships. That's work that needs to be done to identify projects and partner with AmeriCorps and Volunteer New Hampshire, which would be responsible for grant making. And I just want to, make note that there is incredible leveraging of federal funds through national service dollars that are spent and allocated to the state of New Hampshire. So there was a study that was conducted a few years back by ICF. It's commissioned by Voices for National Service. I can send this around to the committee if you're interested. And it found that national service programs that leverage the skills and talents of citizens to address unmet community needs offer substantial monetary benefits for all stakeholder groups and a significant return on investment. So economists report that for every $1 that Congress appropriates to AmeriCorps, it returns more than $17 to society, to program members, and to the government. So, I hope that there would be partnerships with employers to ensure workforce funding and curriculum. That includes apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship programs. And it would ensure that AmeriCorps members not only have an impact, but are also set up for 21st century clean energy jobs that will come online in the coming years as our energy economy shifts away from fossil fuels and into renewables. That's why, different companies across the state are really excited about the legislation. My friend Dan Weeks, who's a co-owner of Revision Energy, and I know is a familiar face in this committee, he's also an AmeriCorps alum himself, and he knows the impact that this legislation would have. He passionately supports it, and he knows that his company stands to benefit from New Hampshire standing up a program like this. Young people want to do this work. Half of all voters under the age of 45 say that they would consider joining a program like this if a position was available to them. Our environment needs it. Our state's economy is going to need workers with this kind of background and training. And it's really a win-win-win. So, that's not even mentioning the way that national service strengthens our democracy by bringing people together to solve problems and get things done for their communities. So I've said plenty. I'm happy to answer your questions.
So this is a study committee?
It is a study committee.
Thank you.
So in that spirit of being a study committee, I have a series of questions because I think the drafting of the bill doesn't reflect even the language you're using in terms of the duties of the committee. I mean, we're likely to do one member of the Senate, but that's okay. So throughout here, it's as if you're already running a program. And so I think, let me just walk through.
Sure.
On line 17, I don't see how you perform and publish cost-benefit analysis because you don't have anything, you're not doing anything yet. So I would suggest develop models for that. And then a little bit further down, on line 27, you can't seek any grants because you don't have a fund established and an authority to do it. So I would say you started the word identify yourself. So I would think you want to identify there. I think down on line 29 you want to identify. I think over on line 7, page 2, you want to identify instead of build. And I think on line 9 you want to identify, and then on line 11 you want to examine. So, you know, we can work on an amendment, but you see what I'm trying to say?
Absolutely.
All this language is if there's a program that's existing or you're actually authorized to set it up and then start gathering money, doing cost benefit, et cetera. And, you know, so it just seemed to me there was a disconnect there. So does that make sense what I'm saying?
Absolutely makes sense, and happy to work with you on an amendment.
So
Thanks, Senator.
We'll get that done.
Senator Waters is easy to work with. Questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you, Representative. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your
Bree?
consideration.
She wants to talk.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure, yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. For the record, my name is Bree O'Malley, and I serve as the Director of Revision Energy's Training Center. So, as you probably know, Revision Energy is an employee-owned certified B Corporation, clean energy construction company with over 480 employees across our 7 branches in New England, with 100 staff right here in New Hampshire in our Brentwood and Enfield locations. Our co-owners are a big portion of our state's current clean energy workforce, and together our mission is to make life better by building our just and equitable electric future. So to be clear, we cannot achieve our goal without the accelerated growth of a thriving clean energy workforce here in New Hampshire. And for that reason, we're here to speak as a business in strong support of House Bill 1499. So workforce training in the clean energy industry is critical because we simply do not have enough licensed tradespeople, particularly licensed electricians, to meet the projected industry growth. At Revision Energy, we have our own in-house electrical apprenticeship program, which originated at our Brentwood location to help develop electricians and meet the needs of our customers and our communities. We built interest in the trades through youth outreach, and we bridge the connection to our industry through pre-apprenticeships. But we need others to grow the pipeline into the industry on a larger scale. Specifically, I personally support the idea of modeling a program on a civilian national service program, which will be tailored to meet local market needs. I recruited AmeriCorps members for City or New Hampshire, and I have 16 years of national service experience. So I'm a strong believer in positive impact and the double bottom line that benefits a national service program. We also appreciate the focus on leveraging both public and private partnerships to grow a program here in New Hampshire. We have a track record of such work nearby in Maine, where we've been able to grow our workforce training to greater impact due to this leverage. For example, we have a partnership with Portland Adult Education and the Portland Arts and Technology High School, which has resulted in a renewable energies career pre-apprenticeship, which is funded through grants and has helped new Mainers leverage existing engineering and electrical backgrounds into roles in our industry and certifications. So we believe this model will result in a successful effort to start such a program here. we would be remiss if we did not specifically say we'd be excited to ultimately partner with such a program should our goals align. So thank you for the consideration of this important bill, which can invest in our local workforce and grow our economy here in our state. We appreciate your consideration on our perspective. Invite you to reach out with any questions.
All right, reaching out. Seeing none. Thank you. Well done.
Thank you.
Good job. And our final speaker, Sam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. For the record, I'm Sam Evans-Brown, Executive Director of Clean Energy New Hampshire. You all have heard me come and yammer about many things here in this committee, but today I want to talk to you about some of the work that we are doing that you perhaps don't know about out in communities. We have a whole half of our organization at this point that is called the Energy Circuit Riders. They do technical assistance on behalf of mostly low-income rural communities, essentially operating as pro bono grant writers for towns that don't have the staff to write proposals to go after any of the many various programs that would help them do energy efficiency projects, solar projects, and even some of the more complicated things. Right now we're working with Eversource to try to develop proposals to do solar with battery backup at community emergency shelters and pursuing federal funds to do that. We are super interested in the Climate Corps or Civilian Clean Energy and Conservation Corps as a potential way of bringing in new young folks into the clean energy workforce, and would imagine potentially doing so in partnership with our Circuit Rider program. Our current constraint at Clean Energy New Hampshire is just capacity. It's not a lack of communities that want to work with us. We're engaged in nearly 100 communities at this point and have over 100 projects that our circuit riders are trying to help with, but that's a staff of 5 folks trying to help with all those projects. And I can imagine a really robust program working with a conservation corps type sort of workforce development program. The benefit for the students would be that they would come straight from having come out of whatever educational program they're in, and would immediately be put to work figuring out real world projects. They would get real world experience in how these projects happen, and then would be able to take that experience to go to any number of these new types of fields of employment with, again, real world experience. There's a lot to figure out here, so we're very supportive of the idea of pulling together a study committee to bring in all the parties that theoretically could be interested in this. All the universities, I think, in particular, might have something to say. UNH has the the name of the program that Fiona runs is going to escape my mind here. And the Sustainability Institute, which is already doing similar type of work, and I imagine we'd want to hear from them about how they would imagine interacting with an AmeriCorps type program. And also just understanding the funding landscape, because obviously we would have to procure new funding to hire these young folks and put them to work. So we would love the opportunity to dig into all these subjects with the lawmakers, as well as any interested parties that they would want to bring in. We would participate really fully in that process. We would show up with bells on, ready to do research and bring resources to the table. And with that, happy to take any questions. I would be interested in hearing if there's a feeling this bill needs to be changed, as to what those changes might be, and would be happy to collaborate on that.
Thank you for your testimony. No further questions. Thank you very much, Sam. And with that, we're going to close the hearing. Okay. Do I have another one? That's it, right? Phew. Okay.
I'll move exec.
And third. All right. So, as far as, there are some bills that are definitely on the table that need some work. 1623 is you just tell me which ones you want me to talk about.
I don't, I just want to.
Let me suggest on this one, Mr. Chairman, that we just talk privately offline.
Okay.
I wanted you to see this, okay?
1623.
Yeah, and this is not to share, I just wanted to have a chance to talk to Kevin individually about what some of the, where we're at on some things, so.
Okay.
Anyway, so,
I'm gonna hold on this one for a little bit.
yeah.
The first one that we did today.
Which one?
That was Keith's. I'm gonna hold on to it. You said you had this.
1465?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that'd be a pretty easy fix, and I'll get that for you. You know, I won't be here next Tuesday, but I will get what needs to be done by then if you want to do something with it.
Okay.
Because it's an FN, go right ahead.
I think 1499, the last one where we just heard, that's definitely gonna need a little bit of work.
Glad to work on it. Glad to
Yeah,
work on it.
yeah.
And do you have some thoughts, Regina, on the last one, or you want to talk privately?
I want to talk about something else.
Okay.
What do you want to talk about?
Offline with Dave.
Oh, okay.
Good. I think I know.
One of my bills.
It's not you, it's me.
And on these other ones, anyways, we'll have a chance. I mean, I don't have anything else to say about them. The ones we heard today.
So, just for future, which ones would you be up, because I'll bring them home and review them. Would you be looking at executing for next week?
Other than Keith's, everyone that we heard today.
Okay.
And then we have some old ones. I want 602.
Which is that the which is that one? Is that
602 is
Landfill
that's the
siting.
landfill.
which?
That's the siting.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan on that one, to be honest with you.
On about the landfill, let me just mention a little something I saw. You know the one that has no more than 15% of out-of-state trash?
Yeah.
Of all these, I think that's one we actually could pass. And I'm gonna just say what I saw in the paper today. Go read the Boston Globe. They had a big conference on running out of space in Massachusetts for solid waste. They're about out of space. And so they're saying, oh, the only thing we can do now is ship it out of state. And they're thinking about more recycling programs and so on and so forth. But you know where it's gonna go is here. So I don't know if 15% is right.
I don't know, because I think there's.
But I just wanted to mention it. Take a look at the article, because I read it, my eyes
There's
just
some
got bigger and
organizations
bigger.
that ship it out west.
Yeah.
A lot.
It's unreal. And you gotta keep in mind, I'm gonna direct you to the study bill that we had that brought that topic up. There was a certain comment that would automatically trigger.
Okay. Well, I mean, you're on the committee, so I set your guide, but I wanted to call your attention to
Yeah,
that.
I've got.
Take a look at it, and, you know, maybe not that bill, but I just wanted to mention that one.
So wasn't there one by Spillane? I wanna do that one, 1424.
1116.
1424.
What was? 14.
1424, it was one of
Yeah,
the
that's
earlier
fine,
ones where
fine.
we
I have
couldn't.
no problem with that. No problem with
We
that.
couldn't exec any because we wanted to get done the Senate bills first. So I'm gonna get that one off the
No problem.
radar.
Okay.
1494, I want to exec next time.
Yeah, okay.
I gotta be frankly honest with you. I'm struggling with 1600. I don't know what to do with that one just yet. I'm still trying to digest it and find out what the need for that is. So I would like to discuss that next time as well, 1600.
If I guess my problem, Mr. Chairman, is I'm not gonna be here next week.
Oh, okay, all right, so we'll hold on now.
I think that the ones that you do want to exec,
Mhm.
if you want to if you want to get a 5-0, so you do consent, once you can ask the president to appoint Rebecca or somebody, if you want a Democratic body in here.
Yep.
And you and I can certainly talk if you'd like, I mean, I've got the fisheries meetings down in Washington, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yep.
But we could talk on Monday or over the weekend if you want to get my
You know what I'll do?
2 cents an acre.
I'll
Go
give
ahead,
Phil a list of the ones that. and-
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Just send it to the
You know, because
committee.
I know we got to move along. We'd have one more week. We'd have the 9th, or no, excuse me, what is it? What's this, the Tuesday, the 6th, is it?
7th.
Yeah, so we'd have that.
I might need a committee just for exec.
Well, we have to, we're hearing bills on the 30th and the 7th, and then I think we could still possibly need that next week just to exec.
I won't be here on the 7th.
It would be the week after.
Well, we've got to work it out, obviously. But we can talk about the ones you want to do. And I said, I don't want to, just because I'm not sitting here doesn't mean we can exec them as long as they're good to go. So.
Right.
So this one will have to be out.
And I'm waiting on our Representative Eagles. She's got some amendments to that, the last one we heard on the PFAS bill.
Yeah, and I talked to Jeff a little bit about that today. And I explained why with Massachusetts going to the one atom.
That's
or
all
the
that
two,
was.
you know, I
Makes
talked
us
to
a
him
dumping
about it
ground.
today too. You have to, God, that's it. If we can't do something about PFAS this year, I don't know what we're doing here. That's all, so. But we'll have more time to talk about that.
All right, so what we'll do is, I'll just give you a list of the ones that
All
we're
right,
going to, and then you'll send it to the committee. And that way you can take a look at it, but I want to get at least a handful of them done.
We got it.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, and this is for,
And, Mr. Chairman, are you gonna be around for about, well,
Yep.
once the turn the mics off, let me tell you about it a little bit.
All right.
This one, okay. So I move, leave exec?
yeah, let's move out of exec.
Second.
And then Regina's gonna want to talk to you after.
I
I am out of exec, yep.
Done.